I'm Hanable, blogger, critic, and fan of listing things in threes. Now, Scream is an example of a film both favourable with general audiences and critics, which for a horror film is rare. So why is that? Is it the original satire of slasher film culture? Well, no. Slasher comedies and meta-parodies go back as far as the early 80s. Well, how about the window into media sensationalism and the cultural idealisation of signs over signifiers? You know what? That could be it. Scream demonstrates the danger in creating a brand or logo like Ghostface, and how media outlets escalate said brand or logo to a famous status by constantly talking about it in terms the brain can easily digest. Using an image or nickname for association, the alternative being in terms the brain can less easily digest, an interpretable set of values and ideologies. So we get a universe wherein there are 5 copycat killers, 7 stab films, at least 2 books, a talk show with a host, an idealised victim / American hero, and a star on the map for the town of Woodsboro. And all because a crazed kid and his friend killed some people in a recognisable white mask that made for an easier soundbite than explaining Billy's actual motives. The Ghostface then became something memorable, an identity in itself that one could hide behind, or place values on that have nothing to do with the original concept, just a copy to be talked about.
A woman has been killed by a man in a white mask after suspecting her of cheating on him. I own a white mask. I could kill someone dressed like this guy on the radio, and they'd assume it had something to do with him, not me, so I can't be blamed. After suspecting her of cheating on him,
She cheated on him. I disagree with adultery, and that mask now represents an opposition to the concept. I shall wear my white mask and kill adulterers as he did.
Of cheating on him, he's being talked about on the radio. That makes him famous. I want to be famous. So I should take my white mask there and copy him. Then I'll be famous too.
So let's look at how the Scream franchise demonstrates this problem, as well as thoughts on other horror films like Scream perpetuating this problem. Meta, isn't it? What? That's what I'm talking about. Scream 1. Constantly labelled as a horror slasher, I would argue the original Scream is really a whodunit. With 6 deaths and 4 fake-outs, the real interest seems to be in self-awarely playing with the audience expectations in the build-up to a pile of bodies, rather than the more commonly explored audience catharsis from just being given a straight-up pile of bodies. For the most part, straight slashers are forced to introduce a group and immediately split them up so they can be killed off one by one, which means a limited amount of interaction and characterisation can take place. Meanwhile, whodunits only work by keeping as many people as possible in the same places, so it's less obvious who's running around in the shadows. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that whodunits are objectively better than slashers, as Scream does do a little bit of splitting off, but it's also possible to work out who is where as each of the murders occurs. So I think it's fair to say we get a more real world and therefore meaningful film as far as truism is valued, if you value it.
So everyone was there together. Bill and Jean were over there. Steve and Nick were here. So... Oh! I've got it! No, wait. I'm the killer? Alright, better go get a knife or something.
Scream owes a lot of its success not only to the whodunit format, but its fusion of that format to a 90s culture examination. The Y generation, with no highs and no lows, sometimes seen as cold, hard or sassy, and extremely nostalgic and reflective. This shaped attitude of seen it all before calmness is perfect for a murder mystery parody. Everyone is film savvy, nonchalant about the deaths of others, so the plot keeps moving, and they're not afraid to theorise and throw suspicion on everyone else as they shrug off any threats.
Hey! Did you hear, this girl got killed this morning?
No way, probably fated for attention.
Yeah. Does my lipstick look right?
Because of its referential 90s-ness, it's easy to argue Scream is without an identity of its own. After all, by its very nature, meta-humour and deconstruction can cause a hollow feeling. Only too often when somebody compares one situation to another film's, the audience is forced to rely on what the reference accomplishes, in the place of the film actually creating an impact itself. For more information, see Scary Movie and its many sequels and spawns, or Family Guy. Dear long-time viewer, we recognise your anger towards our comment about the generically formulaic approach to comedy we feel Family Guy uses. We also recognise that in previous videos we are also guilty of such humour. Please accept our apology. All the best. Cut away in the style of Doogie Howser. Now to address the people upset by what we said about Scary Movie and all the genre spoof films. Dear long-time viewer. Who am I kidding? Nobody's upset by that. I do believe that Scream doesn't do that though. It could have been 107 minutes of references and nothing more, but we got substance, and the first statement about violence glorification in Billy's motive, which was intentionally left unclear. Did films just warp him? Or was everything he did for the benefit of some outside audience who just wanted to see a pile of dead bodies for kicks? Scream 2. Everybody talks about the opening from Scream like Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. We get a top-billing actress and kill her off unexpectedly. Well, if Scream is Psycho, then Scream 2 is North by Northwest, a film made up of masterfully crafted and suspenseful set pieces. That opening in Scream 2 one-ups the first film by taking the idea of glorifying film violence and literally murders a woman in front of a cinema showing the opening from Scream 1 as reenacted for a stereotypical horror audience. Unnecessary shower scene and all. Whilst a crowd all dressed as Ghostface cheer for the fictional murder before realising the reality of an actual murder taking place in front of it. It's perfect. Well, apart from that whole thing with Foreman from House MD listening to people in the bathroom stalls for some reason. We also get Gale and Dewey in soundproof rooms, unaware of each other and unable to communicate as Ghostface approaches. There's also Sydney and Hallie in a crashed police car climbing over the maybe unconscious Ghostface to escape, and the whole scene trying to find Ghostface's identity by finding the phone he's talking to them on in a campus full of students in broad daylight. When it works, it really works.
Hey, did you know a girl got killed on campus this morning?
No way, really?
Yeah, she...
Oh, 1 second, sorry. Okay, bye! The problem is that by spending time on prolonged set pieces, we get less time on interaction and characterisation, and Scream 2 moves from whodunit to slasher. It's a very competent slasher, but it loses a lot of that fullness and reality. For example, Mickey is in 2 scenes and then doesn't turn up for 90 minutes until he's revealed as the killer. Whilst Mrs. Loomis never really felt like part of the main cast, she was more like the principal in Scream 1. By the same token, the motives felt less meaningful as well, even though we got a blame the movie statement as a means to negate responsibility. Everything just appeared at the end as a swift reveal with no time to absorb it. To give it credit, we did get some nice touches with Mrs. Loomis, who when using her alias, never actually comes into contact with Sydney physically until the end, because she would recognise her, and the fact that you know which killer is killing by the use of their left hand instead of their right. But too much just doesn't work. We get that larger-than-life plot about all the murder victims' last names being the first names of the victims in Scream 1 in the order in which they were killed, and it was abandoned almost immediately after it was introduced. Maureen, Stevens, Casey. Okay, be on the lookout for anyone with the name Arthur or Kimberly. Okay, we can stop this. All we need to do is just work out the actual thing.
Madam, sir!
Hold on.
Sorry to bother you. Our Randy Meeks has just been found murdered. It was the same MO.
Well, I'm Alfie. If you want me, you know where to find me.
Nowhere, so don't bother looking.
Bingo. It is possible that the story and characterisation issues were a result of advances in technology, and one of the first documented cases of internet leaking, which led to rewrites, some of which were concurrent with scenes as they were being shot. I do find it ironic though that Scream 2 was the victim of a growth in internet culture, speculating and obsessing over films, using technology, one of the strongest themes of Scream 1. See, the phone was a means of psychological warfare, and the camera footage got the cameraman killed because of the feedback delay. Scream 1 did indeed predict its own demise.
What happened to you?
Oh, a non-specific branded phone blew up in my hand. You?
Someone threw a fax machine at my head.
Wow, technology sure is dangerous. Even with its problems, Scream 2 had enough to like. From the start of The Stab, a film within a film series that takes on a life of its own and turns Ghostface into a superhuman ideology, to Gale's cameraman, possibly the smartest character in horror film history, he just leaves town, then comes back when it's all over. Why don't they all do that? Scream 3. Get it? Because they're making a film. It's a script. I've read rumours that the original plot revolved around Stu, one of the killers from Scream 1, being back and trying to find Sydney and revenge. And seeing as he is secretly in the background of Scream 2, during the frat party, alive, the idea has the potential to be horror parody genius. But after the Columbine school shootings, the MPAA regulations were briefly tightened and rewrites changed the nature of Scream 3 to a more straight comedy with heavy, we're making a film within a film meta leanings.
Hey, did you hear that somebody got killed on set this morning?
No, I can't find the bit in the script. Where is that?
No, it actually happened.
What? Cut! Okay, good read through. Hey, did you like that rifling through the script bit? I thought it was a nice touch.
Hey, somebody really did get killed on set though.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Cut!
There are elements of a running theme. A director killing the cast of his own horror film, like a horror film, which happens to be a Stab sequel, and has completely left the reality of the original, as most franchise sequels do. And there's that piece of voice-changing technology that could have been about psychological warfare akin to the original, paranoia, geographical confusion, not knowing who is alive and who's dead at any one point, even killing in the name of other people and identity theft, which were real turn-of-the-century worries. But after the rewrites and Aaron Kruger being brought in to touch up Kevin Williamson's work, I believe this was not the intent of the film and its troublesome production. Scream 4. With the unfortunate passing of Wes Craven in 2015, I can't imagine that any more additions to the film franchise's catalogue are likely, especially since it's gone down a new path on television. Side note, we have not seen the new series yet, and therefore have nothing to say about it in this video. So it's good that, for me at least, Scream 4 takes the best elements from all three previous films and creates a worthy sequel. Firstly, we're back to the whodunit formula of characters in constant contact, never too spread out, and the opportunity again to map out where everybody is as the murders occur.
Okay, this time I've got it. Carry the one, and I'm still the killer. Where do I keep going wrong with this? Fine. Go do some murders one more time.
Secondly, the comedy aspect seems to have found its tone again, playing on the one-upmanship of reboots, the need to surprise and shock over the need for things to make sense, and of course to have the Stab franchise run away with itself. Since Stab 3 became the first film to occur before an in-film event, i.e. Stab 1 for Scream 1 and Stab 2 for Scream 2, presumably, we now have 7, some with time travel and metatextual paradoxes, like having previous instalments exist only as films in the sequel's universe, which by the way kind of happened in the real-life world of film. So, Scream 1 shows Halloween whilst Jamie Kennedy's character yells, "Behind you, Jamie!" to Jamie Lee Curtis's character. I know, clever. But Halloween 20/H20/H2O, whatever, a reboot sequel to the original Halloween, characters watch Scream 2. So both films recognise the existence of each other as fiction, but also see themselves as a reality. Anyway, thirdly, this film has something to say about whatever we're calling the 2010s generation, when, in retaliation to the cold, isolated, referential nostalgia of the 90s that lacks a personal identity, now it's all about taking those isolated references and intertextualising them, making a new identity out of multiple previously existing ones. You know, the internet. Becoming famous, an idol. And because of that stuff we said earlier about media outlets and soundbites over statistics, realising it's much easier to be recognised for doing something bad than it is for doing something good. So, in Scream 4, we have a case of creating victimisation out of previous people's lives and history for attention.
Hey, did you hear this girl in school got killed this morning?
No way, probably just faked it for attention.
Yeah?
Yeah, watch. Oh no, my friend died. I'm like a victim and stuff. Finally, the set piece with Kirby playing the telephone game as a reboot from the opening from Scream 1 is easily one of the strongest set pieces of the franchise. Scream 2 would be proud. Final franchise notes. 1. I'm glad Scream 4 did away with the rules. In the first film, they were conventions to be subverted to plunge into the unknown and mock the strange genre cliches. But in 2 and 3, they became affirmations of how well a job they were doing to replicate the staple. Scream 1. What happens when a main female character in a horror film is no longer pure? Let's find out. Scream 2. The body count is always higher and the deaths more elaborate. Yeah, these things both happen. What of it? And in Scream 3, all bets are off on who survives. Unless you're the established recurring cast. 2. Scream likes glass. In the commentary for Scream 1, Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson say that Casey's window is like a fourth wall. It reflects the audience's relationship with the film. We see Casey watch from behind glass in horror as her boyfriend is tied up in a chair. She is the audience, but then the glass is broken, she is in danger, and we're supposed to feel like it could happen to us. In Scream 2, we have the aforementioned Gale-Dewey glass separation, and in Scream 3, Jennifer can't do anything as she is trapped behind one-way glass, banging, but unheard by everyone else, as if she is banging on the cinema screen itself, and we can't help. Finally, in Scream 4, continuing the surprise theme, Trudy watches other characters through her window until she becomes the one watched as she is helplessly killed. It's one of those small recurring themes that drives the question, why do we watch horror, death and murder? Because we're protected by the glass? It's fiction? But is it the idea of catharsis? Or are we all just Billy, Mickey or Jill, using motives to deflect responsibilities of who we want to be? Wes Craven would say don't be stupid, and hits upside the head of course. Films create emotions and situations as hypothetical, so we don't have to live it. But we can learn from it. It's a tool for references, not gouging someone's eyes out with. The average stable person does not kill because of seeing violence on the screen. The killing happened long before the screen was invented. Although we do have a set of films where the core victim cast stays the same, and the killers change, as opposed to every other horror franchise, where there are one or two killers and a revolving door of victims. So Sydney, a victim throughout the series, has killed more people than some of the killers, even if it is in defence. Hey, so in Scream, the killer's all like, I want to play a game, like in Saw. And then later, Gale puts a recording device in the party to watch the killer. Only it's actually got a feedback delay that distorts our perception of time relative to the space of the film, like the twist ending of Saw 2. And Saw even has a fake-out dead killer. It's probably nothing. 50 blades of grey. Okay. Note to self. Blow a couple of clearly obvious coincidences out of proportion and call it a conspiracy for views on YouTube. Oh, you still here? You probably don't want to hear about how Scream, the films pivot and play on the rules, just like the Saw films? No? No? Okay. I'll see you next Halloween. I mean Christmas. I mean whenever. I'm always here.